Are you guys ready for some high-sec PvP? Well, I am. Now, there are some questions that I have been asked over and over again for the last 3 years, basically ever since I started to do PvP. In some of my videos, actually in most of my PvP videos, I do have that little overlay over the system name. Now, a long time ago, I actually did try to hide the system, mostly to not bring any trouble to my corp mates, but as time went on and as I keep killing more and more ships, hiding the system became a little bit unpractical, since by now I believe like the whole game knows where I like to hunt, the game knows where I'm most located at, and I believe the whole game basically knows what ships I fly as well. So hiding the system name is definitely, not going to do much nowadays. However, I did decide to keep the overlay over the system for the memes, since there has been a lot of comments saying how I do PvP in high sec, and that by itself is kind of hilarious, since in Echoes currently you can't really do high sec PvP. Now that kind of made me curious. You can find a lot of these Nihilus mining sites in high sec, and the Nihilus space by itself isn't safe space. When you enter, it's basically null space. So technically, there's a good chance that you can kind of do high sec PvP if you find a Nihilus space, and if you enter the Nihilus space, you might find someone inside and you can kill them. So that's kind of funny. Something that kind of caught my attention recently. High sec PvP in any Nihilus space might be possible. So yeah, that's something that's kind of caught my attention and something that I wanted to share with you guys. Now, I also noticed a lot of pilots going deep in our alliance, trying to find me and kill me, which is kind of funny, since I'm not there every day. I know that some players think that since I have a alliance now, and since our corp is now part of a alliance, that we are in null all day long. Well, not really, not really. I'm still doing the same thing I used to do, with some new additions to some new content that I'm working on. So yeah, the PvP not stopping, obviously. The camps, I haven't been flying the Revelation in a while, kind of taking a break from the Revelation. Have no idea what to do with the ship, but the PvP is definitely not stopping. After all, the drone region, the drone lands, so-called drone lands, are also literally around the corner, 2 days away. I'm recording this on the 14th August, so yeah, 2 days until the anniversary of the game is out, and really excited for the new stuff, and excited for hopefully some, fingers crossed, hopefully some new toys that we can fly. That's all I will say. Really hoping for a lot of exciting things to come out of the update. Now, let's warm things up with a Mauler. I have been looking at this Mauler for quite a while. Actually, I have been scouting before. I always scout before I go and engage a target. Now, the Mauler was close to 0, but by the time I decided to warp back in, they did burn 100 kilometers from the mission, which is interesting. Now, a Mauler is definitely not a bad ship. I actually really like the Mauler. It has the potential to be one of the tankiest cruisers in the game. Definitely the tankiest tier 6 cruiser, as you can make the Mauler have about 5.5 to 6,000 DPS tanked easily. My friend has such a Mauler that is almost immortal. Really hard to kill that ship. Now, this Mauler was trying to run a expert mission, which is tier 10 or tier 9, I would say tier 10, since that mission definitely looked like a tier 10 mission. So I definitely expect to have a long battle with this Mauler, since I also have that feeling that this Mauler might be a bait. Now I thought to take the Celos out for this situation, but you know, I like to fight the Arby. The Arby is kind of iconic for me. I love the ship, and a lot of you guys also love the ship, so the Arby it is. Now, usually I warp out and I warp in at a designated distance. Now for this ship, I figured out that warping out is not going to be the better option, since they are obviously moving with a very fast pace. Looks like they are using a micro warp drive. So by the time I warp in at the optimal distance, even if I try to predict, I might land too close or I might land too far. I definitely don't want to be too close, but I also don't want to be too far from the target. If I land too far, then I am not going to be able to hold the target. If I warp too close, I might be in trouble, since I don't want to get webbed and scrambled with this ship, since it has no stabs. And when you have no stabs, you have to play smart and basically have to avoid risky situations where a stab ship will have no issues with.
Under attack.
Now here, I'm not really sure what's actually doing damage on my ship. Could be the Mauler, could be the 3 pirate ships off the mission. I noticed that my tracking disruptors stopped being as efficient as they used to be. Now, I might be completely wrong on this. Could be that I'm just taking damage from the pirate ships, but I don't know. Kind of doesn't look like it. I have a general unit that enhances the performance of my tracking disruptors, and even with that, it seems like they are not doing nearly as much disruption as they used to. Now, I don't know if they changed something. I probably could have missed something in all the patch notes, but I really feel like the tracking disruptors haven't been doing that well since one of the last updates. Again, could be just me taking damage from the pirate ships, but could also be damage coming from the Mauler. I have no idea what's happened. Same thing happened back when I was fighting the Arby. That damage definitely came from the Arby. And now I'm fighting a Mauler, and it seems like the Mauler might be doing damage to my ship. Definitely has an effect, but it used to have a much greater effect. I have no idea what's been happening. So yeah, kind of weird, but it is fine until 50% hull. So I have a lot of armor left. Loading back drones to load the bombs back on. Bombs loaded. Let's launch a second volley of bombs on the Mauler. It's a tanky Mauler. My guess about this Mauler being tanky is definitely correct. A very robust armor on that thing. However, I feel like their capacitor is slowly giving away. They have a dual Nosferatus, but it feels like they lost capacitor, and yes, they lost capacitor, and the ship also went down. Now, I'll give credit to the pilot. They know how to operate their Mauler, but I'll also give some advice on the build. The Mauler is definitely not the fastest, but it's one of the tankiest, and you can easily make the Mauler tank an Arby like this, even tank 2 ships. The problem that the Mauler had with the build was a micro warp drive. The micro warp drive definitely a good idea when you want to chase something, but when you're building a tank ship, you definitely want to make sure your capacitor is alive for as long as possible. Now, dual Nosferatus with a micro warp drive can work if you are orbiting the pirate ships, so you can basically take their capacitor instead of mine. The pirate ships have a much greater capacitor than the Arby, so then you would be able to be capacitor stable to some extent with a micro warp drive if you're using the Nosferatus on the Dominix, for example. But they have been using the Nosferatus on my ship, which wasn't really as effective as if they were, let's say, if they used the Nosferatus on the pirate ship, since
Warp drive active.
they have much more capacity, and I also almost kept out. Now the other thing that I would do, one scrambler, one web, and perhaps dual medium armor pairs, one large capacity battery. Although I have to say, I do like the low slot combination that they had. I would change I would change the micro review afterburner and just use one scrambler and one large Nosferatu to maintain the capacitor. It should be capacitor stable with that build, and of course it should also retain a phenomenal tank. But overall, that was a good fight, a fun one. Good support from the Mauler. They were pretty chill. Was a nice fight, and that was a nicely fit Mauler. I like it. Now here we had one. There was one Oracle here, but it seems like the Oracle has warped out. I have been observing the Oracle before going to change my ship into the Celos, and the Oracle didn't seem to be that tanky. They were taking some serious damage from those ships, and I believe that they went to change the build, or they
Warp
went
drive
to
active.
repair their ship. Now I'll come back to the. I'll definitely come back to the Oracle, to the site when they are back in the mission. Now, until the Oracle is back,
Undocking.
let's see what other targets we can catch today. So I am in the Macariel. My friend has tackled a Raven, so I'm rushing to support, rushing to help. Now my friend is flying a Interceptor, so they should be safe. After all, the Interceptor has a very good speed tank,
Warp drive
especially the
active.
Interceptor that my friend is flying, built for tackling, so they should be good. However, a large neutralizer might be a problem, so I definitely do not want to risk my friend's ship, and therefore I have to be as fast as possible. Okay, there is the Raven, nicely tackled, beautiful. This is also a very good warping, right close to the target, webbed and scrambled. Now the Raven is known to be quite tanky, one of the tankiest tier 9 battleships in the game. Also a shield tank, can be a really tough opponent.
We're under attack.
However, the Macariel is, after all, a Macariel, a giant cruiser, so it's basically built to take on the classic PvE build, the classic tanky build, and the classic DPS build, but a serious tank can easily withstand
Shield
a
damage.
DPS Macariel, or for that matter any other DPS built ship that's built for the same purpose. Now this is a armor tank Macariel, passive armor tank, but you know, it gets the job done, so I'm not complaining about that, and that was a very nice kill.
We're under attack.
I actually put a lot of thought into some of the older PvE builds. I always had the feeling that DPS will skyrocket,
We're
and
under
a lot of my
attack.
old
Warp drive
integrated
active.
builds are still relevant to this day, since they can withstand a crazy amount of DPS, which you will find when you get jumped by a bunch of angry battleships. So those builds definitely do last, and these builds easily counter glass DPS builds like the build that I'm using on this ship at the moment. A good tank bait build easily kills most DPS ships in the game, since they just cannot have enough DPS in such a short amount of time to break down your tank, and you don't need to have a lot of tank to break their tank, since
Warp drive active.
the glass DPS build by default doesn't have a lot of hit points. Now there are some ships that kind of deviate from that average. Nestor, Rattlesnake, they can have a lot of passive tank, but a good active tank can easily last long enough to burn down a ship like that. And I'll have to test that out just to show you how it works. Now the Oracle is back, and I am in the Celos using the Cinnabel build. I really do like the Celos with this build, it's just insane. The battle mode combined with the barrage makes this thing spit bullets like there's no tomorrow. It does make the implant work like a level 45 barrage implant, which kind of means that I am losing DPS since the cycle of the autocannon is so fast. The severity doesn't count some of the cycles. I actually still have to try out the artillery builds. Cells should be very fun, and I have some ideas that I want to test out with a long-range build cells. I actually might do that for some of the next videos. It should technically be a very interesting idea, since with a high-level barrage implant you can have some very nasty DPS, effective nasty DPS with the artillery cannons. 408 million is this kind of reminds me on some of the glass PvP builds that I showed you on the Oracle a long time ago, although not really the same, but the idea seems to be very similar.
Warp drive active.
We are preparing to go to the next target. We have a Raven. Now I'll show you one example of one very smart opponent where they are taking advice that I used to show and say back when I was running the storyline missions with battleships or battlecruisers. I did both actually. Okay, warping
drive active.
Back. Oh, I mean warping back. Going towards the target. Now you might be wondering, what am I talking about? Talking about the distance and range. Well, you will find out when we land. This is probably one of the most interesting encounters that I had in some time. This Raven has about 260 plus kilometer range with their missiles. And as you can see, back in the day I used to say that when you are really far away, even if someone does warp in, they just have no way of reaching you fast enough before you can warp out. And while we are trying to get to the Raven, we are trying to burn towards it, but as you can see, it's not really going according to plan, does it? They're very far away. And I think they are well aware of, yeah, they are warping out. So if you maintain a very long range from the mission, a hunter will have a very hard time to actually get to your ship. And that guy was very far away from the mission, over 260 kilometer range with their missiles. And as you can see, they survived. If they were at 100 kilometers, they would be dead. So yeah, what I used to say back then, it's still relevant to this day. And if you have a fast battleship, you warp at 100 and then burn away from that place as quickly as you can, and then you can manually orbit at 200 plus kilometers. If something goes in, if something lands, you just warp out. As you can see, it worked really well, and the Raven survived the encounter, which doesn't happen that often. Not many ships survive. Not many ships manage to survive our Macarial fleet here. Now here we had a prophecy, and they did manage to complete the mission before we warped in. They were warping in and out for a while. It was really difficult to pinpoint them, especially when I was busy with something else, so wasn't really able to to camp the mission, but no, it happens, so not a big deal. Now, in this encounter, I think we actually have, yeah, we have a Balcorn in the mission. Now, there's a little backstory behind this. I actually almost yeeted my Macarial into a bait, and that Balcorn was a bait, since by the time I undocked, a Apocalypse Striker popped in, and at the other side of the gate there were two more battleships that I didn't manage to confirm what battleship it was, but there were at least two more battleships there. And I cancelled the warp a second before the ship would have entered warp. Now, I was observing the Balgorn before deciding to go, and the Balgorn seemed to be tanky. Now, I kind of got lucky there. I think I got lucky, but it doesn't have to be luck. Could have been a missed opportunity, but definitely felt like a tanky one, since their shield did not take much damage. It is a shield tank Balgorn, so good chance that this Balgorn is a bait. Now, we have two Macarials, and we already have a very nice plan on what to do if it ends up being a bait. Now, both of our ships have a very decent amount of DPS, so we can technically burn down a Balgorn before a bunch of battleships warp in, since the Balgorn isn't really known to be the tankiest. It used to be tanky back in the day, nowadays it's just paper. But the Balgorn, even with a tank build, cannot easily survive the barrage of two Macarials, even with a damage control. So we have a good chance to kill the Balgorn and warp out if it hits the fan. Now, I originally expected this thing to be tanky, and it ended up being the opposite of being tanky. It ended up being the most paper Balgorn that I have ever seen in the 3-4 years that I'm playing the game. This was the easiest Balgorn kill ever so far. Now, doesn't have to be the same ship. Could be that they did leave the system, by the way, before they came back. They left the mission and returned, but this time they did not bring the fleet with them. So could be that they brought a different Balgorn. Could be that they docked the tanky one. I have no idea, but this was kind of funny. It's always hilarious when you prepare yourself for a tanky battle, but then the ship just disappears from grid. It's always funny when that happens. And yeah, this is definitely not a bait or a tank build. That's a PvE high sec build, which, you know, kind of made me confused, since why did they take so little damage the first time when I was looking at them? You know, definitely kind of suspicious when you think about it. Alright, let's go to the next target. Warping in.
Warp drive active.
To the planets. I think we have a Macarial as a target. Macarial party is always fun. Okay, I am on the planet. Let's see. I'm waiting for my friends to go to the fleet warp. Okay, so a little change of plans here. My friend will go and change the build. I will be chilling here on the planet, waiting for my friend to return. After all, my friend is the fleet commander. Have to listen to the fleet commander. Now, I remember, like, well, when was it? 2-3 years ago, I was part of a interceptor fleet. We managed to gather about 40 different interceptors, and we went deep into enemy territory. The goal was basically to kill a bunch of ships, as usual. And the fleet commander at the time was a pilot that actually recruited me into the I think my second ever corp, and the corp that basically introduced me to Syndicate, and the corp where it all started from. That was a very good fleet commander, and those times were really different back then. I was basically the pilot that brought me into the no-sec PvP action. If you go back to my older videos, you can see us in action back then. Like one of the first ever Arby ROMs that I uploaded, they were. And sometimes I actually go back and rewatch them just to see how different everything was, and for the nostalgia purpose, of course, was a different time back then. And did we have fun back then? It was something else. It was something different. It was so simple. The game was so simple, and I think the simplicity was really fun. We spent like 20 minutes fighting one more Guardian. I still remember that fight. It was one of the first ever RB PvP videos that I've ever made, and I still remember the whole fight, the whole chat, everything, and the pilots that were participating in the fleet.
Warp.
That's where that's where our corp started, basically. That's the singularity where everything began. Okay, we are warping into the target, and there is the Macarial party here. Let's quickly engage, quickly lock. Come on, faster. I actually thought about using targeting rigs on the Macarial, and I think I will, since it might be hilarious to have a battleship that just locks like a cruiser or a frigate. Would be kind of hilarious if you think about it. And the Macarial is destroyed. That was a quick one. That was a quick kill. And you know, to think that, I also forgot to mention, to think that the same players that I used to fly with back then made the very ship that I'm flying now. This Macarial was the ship they made. That's just, you know, this ship. That's why this ship is so important for me. That's why I love the Macarial so much. This is literally one of the OG battleships, one of the OG faction battleships ever made in the game, and it was made by the players who basically introduced me to the current team, to the current corps that I'm flying with, and of course with the alliance that I used to be at the time. I actually still am in contact with a lot of alliance guys that
Warp drive active.
were part of Catch 22. I mean, all of the cartel fleet here was within Catch 22 at one point, and we were blue ever since then. We always were basically flying together. As I like to say, trust is the most important resource in the game. If you find a team that you trust, you're set through the whole game, and it's very hard to trust a new team that you find. I mean, I know I still have to build up the trust to my new alliance that I'm currently in. So that's one very important thing about EVE. If you find a good team that you like to fly with, keep that team safe. That's all I'll say, because it's very difficult to find a new one if your current team decides to quit the game or to leave the game, or, you know, if you part ways at one point. It's very difficult to find a new team. Now this was a very fun one. This is a very fun thing that happened here. There was I actually planned to warp in alone, but my friends did log in on time. Now we have a Prophecy and we have a Drake. The Drake will be the primary target, since the Drake did look like the Drake was a bit more expensive. So I'll burn down the Drake first, and then I'll go burn down the Prophecy. My friend landed, and another friend is also on the way, but our DPS was just a little bit too much for these two battlecruisers. That was fast. That was some That was some old school angel hit and run action. That was nice. That was a well executed plan. I love it. 2 nice kills. Very good teamwork. And I actually thought about using a different ship, but ended up with the Macarial since I really felt like could be a trap. So if I sense a trap, I just drop the Macarial and then I surprise them. That's how you play Eve. You surprise the opponent. They did not see a Macarial coming for sure. Well, actually, they did not see 3 ships coming in for sure. that's a fact. Now let's take a look at the kills. 250 million, not bad. I actually expected the Drake to be a bit more expensive, but turns out the Prophecy was the bling one. The Prophecy had some very juicy modules. Nice. That was some good action there. Very nice executed teamwork. Well, that was a very nice little run today. Definitely some very good targets. Definitely was very fun. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you would like to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.
Warp drive active.
We're under attack. We're under attack. Shield damaged.
Warp drive active.